We'll have to give people a few minutes to find us and get the notification and jump on. But aloha to all of you who are watching now and seeing this. Mahalo for viewing this tonight. This is Healing Hawaii with Karen Kaulana. I'm Karen Kaulana, and I'm so excited because I'm sharing a program that has been dear to my heart and I've been involved with, and I'm excited about the show that's coming up and sharing it with you. And my guests are awesome. And dear friends, we have Mike Smola from the Hawaiian Mission Houses Historic Site and Archives. Thank you, Mike, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And second week in a row, if you watched last week, you saw Mike also, because he's involved with the Play Builders show that opened Open Your Hearts Wide. And that was such an emotional show to talk about some sensitive topics, but a really important part of our history. So Mike is back to talk about the mission houses, Cemetery Pupu Theater that we're doing this weekend. It's coming up this next weekend, coming up June 11th. It starts. So we're so excited to share. And I'm in it, as well as my two dear friends, Stephanie Conching. How's it, Stephanie?
It's good, Karen. Thanks for asking us here.
I'm so glad you got to join us. Thank you so much. And Karen Velasic. Karen, how are you?
Yay! Oh, I'm fantastic. Thank you so much. I'm so excited. I love this show.
I'm so excited that you're here. I love that you put your pronouns by your name. I got to do that. I love that you put she, her. I love that. I got to do that too. That's great. But I'm glad you're here too, Karen. You're part of the Theater Karen Club, because there's like a ton of Karens in community theater in Hawaii, and we're all part of the Karen Club. And I think we should make it official and have like a meeting and everything, like where we get together, like all the Karens in theater, because there's many of us. Yep. It's like incredible.
Right. There's costumers and set designers and producers. I mean, we could put on our own Karen show.
Oh my gosh, bucket list. The Hawaii Community Theater Karen show. Okay, yes. Because we gotta reclaim our name, because everything is like, oh, you're a Karen. So then we'll just redo that with our own Karen show. Okay, that was my stalling for time while people are jumping on and getting the notification to come on. If you're just joining us, this is Healing Hawaii with Karen Kaulana. I'm Karen Kaulana. My guests today are all involved in mission houses, historic site and archives. Almost missed my line. Show Cemetery Pupu Theater. It's Stephanie Conching, Karen Velasic, and Mike Smola, and we are going to share about Cemetery Pupu Theater. If you haven't been or you don't know about it, you're in for a treat for the next hour. We're going to talk about it, and you get to come and experience it either in person safely in the next 3 weekends, or you can view it online virtually from your own home or wherever. So you get many opportunities to check this experience out. And I'm so excited to talk to them about it and share this really incredible creative living history program with all of you. So I always start my show off with a blessing or an opening prayer or something. And I did write something. And I found an Olelo No'eau. So I can use that. And so I use this moment to just come together, to breathe, to take a moment to breathe, whether you're faith-based or don't necessarily have a faith that you practice. It's just an opportunity to kind of you can even thank the universe, God, creator, source, energy, the land, and just come together and take a breath. It's just to take a moment together and be grateful. That's really what it's about, to whoever and whatever you may be grateful to and for. So I'm going to start with the Olelo No'eau that I found. Ikava mamua, ikava mahope. Literally translated as in the time before, in the time after. This Olelo No'eau tells us that the future is in the past, or that learning from the past can guide the future. The wisdom of lessons learned in the past may be the most important things for adapting to future changes. And we take a breath.
Beautiful.
I want to say thank you to our highest creator, Keakua, for breath, for the blessings and gifts and talent, skills, wisdom, and the opportunity to share these things with others. We thank the Aina for giving us life. We thank those who have come before us, the ones portrayed in this show, that their stories are told well and that their voices come through, and the ones resting in the place we'll be performing at. Thank you for allowing us to share where you slumber, always so welcoming towards us and being a kind and gentle audience to our sharing of this history. We ask for the wellness and safety for all, especially those on here now and those viewing this show and involved in the play, the living history play for Cemetery Pupu Theater, that all will go well. And those who join us to view and experience the past, that you may be blessed by this experience, these words, these people, and remain safe. Mahalo keakua. Amene.
Amen.
Amene. Thank you guys so much for coming on. I'm excited. We have a lot to cover, and I'm going to start with Mike. Mike, tell us about mission houses and what you do there and how Cemetery Pupu Theater began.
Right. So Hawaii Mission House's Historic Site and Archives is right in the center of downtown Honolulu. It's the site where the New England Protestant missionaries first lived here in Honolulu as the headquarters mission station for what eventually became 17 stations on 5 major islands in the period between 1820 and 1863. So what we have on site is actually 3 historic buildings that people actually lived in and worked in. The 1821 Mission House, which is the oldest still standing house in the state. The Chamberlain House, which was built in 1831. And then the bedroom annex, which we interpret as Kahalipati, the House of Printing or the Printing Office, which was built in 1841. What I do there is I am the curator of public programs. So I'm responsible for our education programs, our tour programs, and our special events like Oahu Cemetery Pupu Theater. So that's most of what I handle.
Are those houses that are on the site? They're the original homes that were used by the missionaries?
So they've been restored several times, but yes, they've never moved. They've never burned down. They've been there since they were built.
Wow, incredible. Okay, so many people I think know about mission houses. They may have done a tour when they were in school. They may not have visited you recently, but you guys are still open and have services available online or
yeah, we do offer in-person tours 3 days a week right now, Tuesday, Friday, and Saturday, at 11 and 1 on Tuesday and Friday, and 11, 1, and 3 on Saturday. We do have a capacity cap. We only allow 4 people on tour at a time. If you have a group larger than that, you can go ahead and call us and we can make special arrangements for that. And then right now we've been doing, well, up until school ended, we're doing virtual field trips for school children. So, and not just school children, but even college level. Just this past Friday, I was doing a discussion with a class at a university in Japan over Zoom from the Chamberlain House parlor, interestingly enough. And then before that, we have all sorts of elementary schools and such that have been coming on virtual field trips.
That's so cool. I gotta bring my group on a virtual field trip. Steph, you too. Yeah, we can bring our classes.
Yeah, teaching on Zoom is a whole different animal, as I'm sure any teacher has figured out in the last year and a half.
That's so cool though that you guys adapted and offering that. Okay, so how did CPT begin? Because it has been, and I can't believe this, 10 years of performing this living history Cemetery Pupu Theater. So tell me how it began.
Right. So in 2011 is when we got started with this program. Dr. Tom Woods was the executive director at the time. And he had done a program at Old World, Wisconsin, involving an African American cemetery on their site there. And did the, same kind of thing where you do research and then write scripts and then hire actors to portray those people. And so initially we worked with Nanette Napoleon, Ms. Graveyard herself, Ms. Cemetery herself, who's also happens to be on the board for Oahu Cemetery, who's our co-sponsor and partner for this program. And so that very first one, we didn't really have a theme or anything. Nanette picked 5 people, subject to our approval, and she picked out some people and wrote some scripts, and we got in period outfit. I think we had Peggy Crock costume our very first one. She is our costumer this year. So she's been with us nearly every year for 10 years. I think there's maybe 1 year that she didn't costume this production. And that first show we had, William Ha'o as Detective Kealoha, who was investigating the Gil Jameson kidnapping and murder case from like the 1930s. We had Nyla Fuji'i Bob as Pi'ilani, the wife of Ko'olau the leper, telling their story. We had Cecilia Fordham as Mary Dominus, Queen Lili'uokalani's mother-in-law. And then we had Jeff Gear as a civilian firefighter responding to the Pearl Harbor attack on December 7th, 1941. And then myself, actually.
Wow.
I acted in the very, very first one. I was William Halford, the coxswain of the USS Saginaw, which wrecked and Curie Atoll in 1870. I was the only survivor of the rescue mission, the mission to go get help from the Hawaiian government at the time. So that first one, we didn't have. It was more like readers' theater. I think 3 of us were on book. And me and Jeff Gear were not on book. It took me something like 2 or 3 months to learn that script. And I'm sure the actresses with us and yourself will attest to how difficult it is to do a long form monologue that's, between 15 and 20 minutes long.
Yes.
But that was the very first one. And then the following year, we did one at the Mission Cemetery across the street from Hawaii Mission Houses, between us and Kawaiahao Church. And then we went back to Oahu Cemetery the following summer 2012, and we've been doing it there ever since.
Wow. And so when people ask you, what is Cemetery Pupu Theater? What do you say without getting too much into the experience? Because we're going to talk about that later. But what in general, how do you describe it to people? What is it?
The best way I can think of to describe it is sort of dinner theater in a cemetery.
Dinner theater in a cemetery. I love that.
Right. It's a good way to think about it. Because it is very, and the idea behind doing it in the cemetery actually comes from a 19th century practice, which was to hold, family gatherings and picnics in cemeteries with the dearly departed, and swap family stories and food, and that way the departed could be part of the family reunion, if you will. Still, so that we kind of took that idea and made it into a theater presentation, a scripted theater presentation. So
wow. And you know what, people still do that today, because when I visit my mom's niche at Diamond Head, there are a lot of local families that are gathered, especially on holidays, and they have a picnic table. It's almost like the beach, but it's at the graveyard, and they have potluck and they have all the food, and it's around their loved one's gravesite. And so, and I'm seeing more and more families doing this, like picnicking at the gravesite. So this is becoming like very culturally accepted, welcome. People do this at practice.
yeah, I think it happened that type of activity happens here more than some places on the continent that I've experienced.
Yeah.
So it's more of a thing here than it is elsewhere.
Okay, I'm gonna go to Karen Velasic. Karen, I'm so excited to see you because it's been
Hey,
a minute since I've seen you and your husband Richard. Tell me about yourself, your background, and how you got involved in Cemetery Pupu Theater.
well, let's see. By profession, I was a music teacher preschool for about 20 some odd years. Theater, though, was always my first love. And so Richard and I have been acting in Honolulu Community Theater since we moved here 30, almost 35 years ago.
Wow.
So we've, yeah, we've done
Where
a
are you guys
lot.
from? Where are
We're
you guys?
originally from Northern California, Humboldt County. Decided to try someplace a little warmer. So we moved here, and we were just kind of here because Richard was doing was teaching in a conference, and we were here like one day and went, let's move here, and we did. So here we are, and
Wow.
still 35 years later, we're loving it. And almost immediately got involved with the music and theater community because it's so vibrant here. I mean, it's so awesome, and there's such talent, and it's pure joy to be working this. Now, the Cemetery Theater, we went, Richard and I went to a couple of them before we were ever asked to participate and actually act in them, and we loved it. Just, you get food, and it's like, this is how you should learn history. This is people telling you their story. It's really we loved it from the get-go, and then when we were asked to participate and be in one, that was just, I want to do this.
That's
I think that was
awesome.
was that the medical one that you were both in?
Yes.
Oh,
That was
Yeah,
the
for the
first
sake
one.
of
for
the
sake of the
sake of the
public health.
which was
Yes.
your portrayal show, Karen, debut
Yep.
show.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep, that
I
was the
loved
first one that
her.
I was in, and I was in with Karen. Yes, that was
Yeah,
wonderful. That
Karen
was
yeah,
First
Karen
woman
was
got
right.
Sandwich Island.
Yep, Sarah Eliza Pierce Emerson.
Yes.
Yeah. And then
Yep.
Karen Kaulana, you were Halia, the role you're doing for this show.
That's right. That's right.
And then Richard was Dr. Archibald Sinclair, the tuberculosis doctor at Leahi Hospital.
Oh yeah.
Guy. Exactly.
Oh my gosh, Mike,
Yep.
there's been
Good
10
one.
years of Cemetery Pupu Theater. How do you remember? How did you remember all that? Oh my gosh.
I mean, we have developed nearly about 50 of these portrayals of real, historical people or real historical experiences. And so, to be honest, I remember people's wonderful performances most of all. And every year, and once we started theming them, it became a lot easier to remember. It's like, all right, who was in that show? The medical one, the environment one, the sea life, sea captain one, the going to school one, all that kind of thing, the education one. So that became a lot easier to remember.
Got it. Got
which
it.
portrayals are in which show.
Okay, Stephanie, this is going to be your first Cemetery Pupu Theater. Breaking the cherry. Welcome. How tell us
The
about
people
yourself.
are amazing. Me, I have a degree in theater from University of Hawaii. Woo!
Yes.
By day, I teach at Mary Star of the Sea School, but like the Vlasics, we just try to do theater as much as we can in Hawaii because there's such an enormous amount of opportunity here and so many great people to work with, and everybody has their distinct kind of interest and mission, and it's all so exciting.
Yeah. And so how did you get involved with this, with mission houses and this Cemetery Pupu Theater?
Well, luckily, I was also involved in Open Your Hearts Wide, the movie that you talked with Mike and Play Builders about from last week. And I just was in the right place at the right time. Yay. But it's an honor to portray these people from history who, you know, I don't know, they're just like, back then they were probably just normal people, but now just that small bit that they added to history is so rich. Yeah, it's amazing.
You know what would be cool? Because it's 10 years of Cemetery Pupu Theater. What would be cool is in like 50 years, 100 years, somebody does a tribute to us, the actors and the historian and researcher, and they portray our lives at the theater. Wouldn't that be kind of cool? I'm just putting it out there. Okay, so all right, back to Mike. What goes into creating a show like this? So what and what people have you done before? You mentioned some of them, but what does it take to put on a show like this?
Right. So this is actually about a 6 to 7 month process to put one of these shows together, because we always pick 5 people, to portray every June up at the Wahoo Cemetery. So you got a lot of times this show's a little bit different because it's the 10-year anniversary. But previous shows, what we've done is we picked a theme. I research people associated with that theme, find out who's buried at the cemetery. And then we choose the people. Now, one of the things that I always try to take into account are like gender and ethnic balance. We always try to have at least one, if not 2 Hawaiian voices, at least 2 women out of the 5. One show we had,
all
I
women.
think it was we had all women last year for the women's suffrage show.
Mm-hmm.
And then celebrating 100 years of the 19th Amendment. And then a show called Woman's Triumph, which was taken from actually an old suffragette song, the title from it. And then and then we had one that was 4 out of the 5 people being portrayed were Hawaiian or part Hawaiian.
Oh, wow.
Which was a really neat one. It was nearly all Hawaiian cast, which was awesome.
Wow. So you mentioned
yes,
that it's several months process. What do you have to do?
So in that process, I do the research. So I do all the primary document research. I'm going through archives and newspapers and letters and diaries and stuff other people write about them. And then for all 5 people being portrayed. And then I compile that all into hopefully something relatively organized, usually is. And then and then at that point I hire, I turn that all over to a professional script writer. To take all that primary research and distill it down to a 5 to 7 page script that will last between 15 and 20 minutes in presentation. One of the neat things that our script writers have done pretty much the entire time we've been doing this is that whenever possible, they will use the person's own words. So if they're quoted in a newspaper story, or we have a letter from that person to someone else, or something like that, or they're writing in their diary, the scriptwriter will put that person's own words into the script. And so we don't have to make up the things that they're saying most of the time. And the little bit, usually they're just bridges between, straight up quotes from their personal letters and such, personal correspondence and the like. So we do that, and then William Ha'o has been our theater director at Mission Houses since 2012. He acted in the very first one, and then since 2012 he's been directing Cemetery Pupu Theater. So Will and I have been doing this together for a long time. We're theater spouses, if you will. But we've been doing this for a long time. So I worked with Will quite closely to get everyone cast. Then it's time to turn it all over to the actors and the scripts, and then we work with Peggy, the costumer. And I try to usually I'm able to locate an image of the person. That's what Peggy Crock will base the costumes on, is an actual image of the person in the time period they're supposed to be in. And that's what she does. And then it's all the actors memorizing their scripts, a few rehearsals, dress rehearsal, and showtime. So that
Wow.
process, I usually start that process in December of the previous year, and for the June the following year.
Oh, so it's like a year and a half long.
So in 5 months, I'm going to be starting the show for 2022.
Oh,
So in December of
okay.
2021, I will start working on the show for
Oh, for
June
half a year.
2022.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Wow. How do you choose? How do you
Oh,
pick
sorry.
who you want to portray? And what characters did you pick for this year? Oh, sorry, Stefan, I'll go to you after. Uh, uh, who, how do you pick and who did you choose for this 10th anniversary show and
Right.
why?
So usually what we pick, usually it's centered around that theme, whether it's Tales from the Sea or For the Sake of the Public Health, or Footprints on the Land, which is the environment show, Going to School, which is all about education history. Usually it's centered around the theme. And I start doing some very basic research. And then I try to pick people that have enough primary document archival material to be able to turn into a script of that length. And then I picked the people sort of most central to that theme. And usually, many times I am drawn to very, very undertold stories.
Mm,
So, for example, Mary Dowsett, who Stephanie is portraying in this show, not many people know about her husband. And, of course, their family became very prominent in the mid to late 19th century as business folks and, involved in some of the high circles of society.
are they
Karen,
are they
yeah,
related to Wilhelmina Dowsett? Or are they different Dowsetts?
I think they're different Dowsett families.
Okay, okay,
So one's Kauai Dowsett and one is Oahu Dowsett.
got it.
Mm.
And then, Karen Velasquez, she portrayed Dr. Sarah Pierce Emerson, the first licensed woman doctor in the kingdom. And that's a story that people don't very well know very well. And there's not a lot of literature on that, but luckily I was able to get a lot of her papers out of the Huntington Library in California, where her and her husband Nathaniel's papers ended up for some reason. And then, so from there, I got to choose, I got to figure out where they're buried at Oahu Cemetery, or if they're not buried there, a nice, what we call neutral ground, sort of in between graves with kind of a big wide open space. And then because we want to make sure that there's enough room to perform, that there isn't too much sound bleed from one actor to the next. Allows time for the rotations around to happen, for the audience to go from performance station to performance station. And from there, those are how the choices get made. Now for this particular show, we picked, I came up with, I think, a list of 17 out of the 50
Wow.
that I wanted to see again, partially based on the strength of the script and the strengths of the performers or the performance that
Wow.
we had before. And sometimes again, so that's kind of undertold story, or and I wanted a good selection from the different years. So all 5 people that we're portraying this year are from different shows.
Mhm.
I would like to have some other people, but I didn't want to double up people from one show. I want kind of a nice strength from Mary Dowsett kind of in the beginning to Sharilla Lowry, who we've done twice, who Karen Velasquez portraying, and Stephanie's doing Mary Dowsett. And then we did, and so, she's from a show like a couple of years later. And so I wanted to get sort of a nice smattering all across the board. And then we have Moses Goods as David Malo, which was our show 2 years ago, the education themed show. Albert Weligatoni is portraying Curtis Yaukea, the statesman, not the wrestler.
Mhm.
Have
Yeah.
to make that distinction.
Yes.
But and that was from our 2018 show, which was At Your Service, which focused on government and public service. And he has a very powerful monologue, I think, that really tells a very heartfelt and personal story. They get really a good sense of who he is. So it's kind of a smattering of themes, and we wanted a nice selection from across the years, but we also wanted strong scripts and strong performers.
Got it. And I'm doing Halia, which is unusual because it's not someone buried at the cemetery.
Right. So Halia was a very early one from the medical show, for the sake of the public health. And Halia, your portrayal is a what we call a composite character, if you will, or a composite portrayal. So I couldn't find anyone at Oahu Cemetery that I could find enough archival material on to talk about the 1853 smallpox epidemic that decimated Honolulu.
Yeah.
And so over the course of 8 months, and I think I picked that one in particular because I think that has a lot of parallels to what we've all been going through the last year and a half, and the
Yeah.
measures they took for quarantine and to try to keep people safe and stop the disease from spreading as much as possible. So that's the reason I chose yours, and
Oh,
also your
yeah.
wonderfully powerful performance of it.
Oh,
But so you're really kind of a composite of several different people's experiences taken from primary documents of the 1853 smallpox epidemic.
got it. Well, I love telling that story because I love honoring those people because like over 6,000 people lost their lives to the smallpox, and many of them, were put in mass graves and kind of abandoned. And there was a lot of fear, kind of very similar to COVID in many ways. And to remember them, which is what Halia stands for, right? Is memory, Halia.
Right, memory or fond remembrance, especially of a loved one,
And so it really just
is
honors
what that
them.
is. That is
Yeah, I love that. And so I love telling that story. It's very heart-wrenching and just emotional, but it's the idea to remember all those people who suffered and lost their lives is just a way to really honor them and that they mattered. They mattered.
right, and that's what we try to do with all of our portrayals, is to try to be as true to the person's life as we can, and try to get a sense of who they are and how they might respond emotionally and to things, and really try to honor their life story, or at least some part of it.
Thank you for that. And Stephanie, were you going to say something? Were you going to ask Mike something earlier? Did I interrupt you?
I interrupted you. I'm sorry.
No, no,
It's just that Mike was talking about Peggy and her great costumes. And I think I overheard them saying that my character is the only character they've ever done that is wearing a hoop skirt.
That
So
is correct. All the other eras, people that we've portrayed are different eras that where hoop skirts were not in fashion. So yours is a little bit later in Mrs. Dowsett's life, at the time when hoop skirts were fashionable. And so you're the only one that's in a hoop skirt, Mrs. Dowsett, Mary Dowsett. So
that is really cool. So Stephanie, tell me a little bit about your character and how you connect to her.
well, Mary is totally in love with a sea captain who is in love with the sea himself. And the two of them fall in love with Hawaii together, and they want to make it their home and raise their family and start businesses. And he goes off in search of some fortune and doesn't come back. And so I'm in Hawaii with our family and a hope that maybe he'll come back, or maybe we'll find some sign that he's somewhere in the Pacific.
Wow.
So it's kind of a sad romance about the sea and how it affects people, and it's interesting. Actually, and one of the most interesting things to me about this entire process is seeing Mary Dowsett's grave. That was phenomenal. I really felt connected and honored, and I really want to make sure that I do right by her,
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes. Karen, tell me about thank you, Stephanie, so much that I'm so excited that you're part of this, and I'm excited to see your portrayal of Mary Dowsett. I think you're going to be awesome, because you just are awesome. You come with such a breadth of theater experience and know-how and skill and knowledge, and you're gonna do well by her. You really are. Karen, tell me about your character for this show, Sharilla, right?
Right, Sharilla Lowry. And I just have to say here about Stephanie. I'm excited that you're with us too. Sharilla, I love, and basically part of the reason why I got the background I do, I thought Sharilla deserved flowers and garden, because she's all about, she's the reason our city is so beautiful. She is the founder of Honolulu's Outdoor Circle. I mean, she's the reason we don't have billboards. She's the reason there's trees along the avenues, and she's fabulous, fabulous character. And Steph, I know what you mean about being at the grave, because like Mike was saying, this is the second time that I've done her, and she talks to me. I mean, I sit there and just listen to her and her family, and they're all, you know, and the cool thing is that the Outdoor Circle has a little monument that they had built for her. So I get to go and commune with that and thank all the ladies who have worked so hard to make Honolulu so beautiful. All the gardens, all the trees, all the, you know, hibiscus flowers is a lot due to them. And they actually planted a tree for her. And so I go and I touch it and talk to it and talk to her. And
wow,
I think it probably always sounds weird, but it's just the feeling you get when you're there. And
that's amazing.
She's there. She's there.
I want to add that the Outdoor Circle is still an active community organization today. In 2012, they celebrated their centennial, their 100th anniversary.
Wow.
As an organization. That's when they planted the tree at the memorial from the Outdoor Circle at Sharilla Lowry's family plot.
Wow.
And actually, the previous actress who portrayed Sharilla, I think, what was her name? Hannah, did the Sharilla portrayal for the Outdoor Circle ceremony and planting that tree.
Oh wow.
Nice.
Wow.
Nice.
I was gonna
I
oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. That there's been family members as part of the audience, right? And
Yes.
I will never forget stories talking about how basically how fierce she was about getting those mahogany trees, and how, you know, certain things that
Wow.
you know, it's like family legend stuff that that you get to hear. And it's really cool, because yeah, she's still, her legacy is there, man. And
Wow.
people don't know her name. They don't know her. So I feel so grateful and so honored to be able to share her story. Hey, Bodhi.
You sound like you're in the middle of a menagerie. I love all the animal sounds.
Have birds going, and because we have a parrot, so he was going.
So cute. Well, you brought up something really great, Karen, that you listen to her and she talks to you. I wanted to ask you guys about portraying real people, and next to their gravesite, we're portraying people who actually lived in Hawaii, and we are portraying, well, for this show, I'm not an actual person, right? I'm a composite, but I represent all the people that passed from smallpox. But you two will be performing near their graves of the people that you are portraying. So how do you prepare to perform a real person, and how does that feel, and your connection at their gravesite? And Karen, you talked a little bit about that because you feel like she talks to you. So do you feel like she approves, or that she's with you and she's giving you strength to tell her story?
Absolutely. That's a really good way to put it, is that she welcome. I wait for her. It's like I ask permission and I wait for her to welcome me. And most of the time she's, you know, kind of right there. And there's a strength of hers, I think, that comes to me. She's yeah,
That's
yeah. No, I
amazing.
love there.
I
I
think it's
know
also,
it's
yeah,
yeah, it's chicken skin,
yeah, and it's also
right?
because you're so open as an actress. Like I think that you're
Mm.
so open that to receive and to hear and to be comfortable with that too. So I think that's accredited to you too, to be able to make that spiritual connection as well with her spirit and her soul. Stephanie, this is your first time, but I'm sure it's not your first time portraying a real life person because you have so many years in theater. But how do you feel about performing next to Mary Dowsett's grave, and how do you prepare to play her, a real person?
It's very similar to Karen. You really feel, like the protocol. You just kind of say to the person, "Hey, I would like to be you and present you. Is that okay? Please be with me." Um, and with Mary, I don't know about Lowry, but Mary's family is all there too in her site. So,
Mhm.
and I
Yeah,
talk about her
same.
family in my monologue too. So I'm kind of telling everybody there, um,
Mm,
hey, come along with me, everybody, please. Um, and it's very cool to be on site. I've experienced and done some other on site history things, and I think Karen was saying this earlier. It's such a good way to learn history because you're there and you're a part of it, and you can actually have uh, an opinion. It can actually touch your heart. Like, wow, that really meant something to me. So
y- yeah,
hopefully that will come from this as well for folks.
Yep.
and I think that the audience too experiences that because they sit next to the grave site as well. They're sitting there under a tent next to the grave site watching us perform the story of that person, and here they are put to rest right there, and the people are sitting with them. So there's an experience for the audience as well, and it's not spooky. I wouldn't say it's spooky. It's actually interestingly such a good feeling. It's like it's an amazing connection
Mhm.
and this peace and this joy and the sorrow and everything that you share in the person's life, that the audience goes with you, and it's a beautiful experience. So Mike, for people who have
Mhm.
never experienced this kind of show before, what can they expect from the virtual performance? Because we're offering it virtually this year, $25 to watch it virtually. The link will be accessible for 24 hours, right? With the $25. Or they can watch it in person with dinner and drinks Friday or Saturday for the next 3 weekends. So what is this experience like for people who come in person, people who watch online?
So the easier one to address at first is, I think, the online version. So what we've done is we filmed all 5 portrayals, actually at Oahu Cemetery. So it's like you're kind of in the audience at the cemetery. And then, yeah, you do. I'm not sure if the access is for 24 hours. I think it's for maybe the entire run. You can,
Oh,
um, so
okay.
you can watch it kind of at your leisure. You can watch one every night and sort of binge watch it, or you
Oh,
can,
okay.
watch all 5 in one night. It'll be probably about a 2-hour production or so, with all 5 portrayals.
Got it.
Um, and then what we do, and so we actually film those at the Oahu Cemetery near the performance spots, or at the performance spots where we'll be for the live run. So you should have so hopefully you get a sense of actually just being in the audience for a live show, within the confines of your computer screen or your TV, depending on how you watch it. Another thing that we do to keep the Pupu in Cemetery Pupu Theater is we provide historic recipes. So we've been looking at recipes from a cookbook, I believe, from 1898. So
Wow.
right around
Oh,
1900 there, to provide historic recipes. And I believe these come from, it's a church cookbook. I want to say Kalihi Union Church off the top of my head.
Oh,
From like 1898. This might be the 1903 edition of it. I'd have to double check for sure. But yeah, so it's a historic cookbook with historic recipes put together by local people. at the time, and published as like you do, like a church cookbook fundraiser or something like that, kind of thing.
That's
And
neat.
so we tried to provide recipes, some historic recipes that are maybe not done as often today, with maybe some ingredients that are not commonly used today. And other ones that I think people would feel very comfortable making still today, if they might even still make it, or some version of that particular dishes. So we will be providing those as well. They'll have the full feeder program like you would, except it'll be in PDF form. So you get the same actor and portrayal bios and all those parts. One of the neat things I put in the program was a photograph collage of 10 years of cemetery theater and some of our highlight performances and people and actors and things like that. I didn't include anyone who was in this show because I wanted to get at other folks that we've portrayed over the years. Including, I even managed to track down a photograph of that very first cast. I think I had to pull it off my Facebook page, but I managed to track one down of the 5 of us. So it's very exciting to be able to present virtually and in person. Last year we had to do all virtual due to the COVID-19 restrictions in place at the time. But so we're very excited to be offering sort of this dual experience this year. For the in-person, you're going to be coming straight to Oahu Cemetery. You'll park down on the lower road and come up to the chapel and the Chapel Lanai, the main building at Oahu Cemetery. You will have a 2 entree bento, courtesy of Royal Kitchen. We'll have a bar service by donation. And so you can, so we have wine, beer, and soft drinks. And then you'll have some time to eat that and, kind of relax and mill around with your group a little bit. And then you'll get divided up into different colored groups, and every colored group gets a guide, and then you go out to the 5 performances, and the guide takes you from each performance space, each gravesite to each gravesite to experience all 5 performances. And then after that, you come back to the lanai, where we have more food and drinks available, and then in the chapel we'll have our question and answer, our talkback session. Where people will be able to talk to the actors and actresses, our theater director, Will, myself as the researcher, Peggy is usually there as the costumer to talk about the costumes. And so, but we are definitely taking COVID precautions. Number one, it's outdoor theater, which is outdoor, of course, is much better. The audience will be approximately 6 to 8 feet from the actor. During the performance, usually, and Karen, you both know this very well. Usually, you're kind of right up on the audience. Of course, we can't do that with COVID going on. So the actors will be 6 to 8 feet away. Indoor spaces will be mask required per the governor's mandate. That the indoor mask requirement is still in place, even if you're vaccinated. And so we usually used to have a buffet, and now we're doing individual bentos. For everybody. So we are taking a number of precautions, and we may even require, and then the seating will be spaced out with pairs of chairs. So there'll be 5 sets of 2 chairs in different parts underneath the tent. So we can do some socially distanced seating as well.
So there's only 10 people per group. So when the audience is split up, it's only into a group of 10, and they're split up when they sit to watch each of the performances. It's individual performances at each gravesite, and they can spread out under a tent. And so it's very comfortable. Yep. It's still outdoors, fresh air. They can wear their mask, and they'll be distanced from us because we won't have a mask on because we'll be performing, but very, very safe. A lot of safety precautions went into this. So
absolutely. There will also be hand sanitizer stations around, as well as sanitizing of the seats in between rounds.
Wow.
So those are some of the other precautions we're taking as well. And even though there's many more people who have gotten the vaccine and are fully powered up, as I like to say, on that, we still got to make sure that we're careful for everybody.
Yeah, we think about everybody, our whole community. That's awesome. So
and I do want to point out this is our first live in-person event in a year and a half. So we're all very excited at Mission Houses about being able to do live in-person programming again.
And I want to say to anybody out there who has never experienced this, it is an experience and it is really, really cool. I think much of the feedback we all get, and I'm sure Mike, you can attest to this, and Karen, is that when people experience it, they really like it and they want to come back. They want to bring their friends. They want to come back. It's not like any other show. It's outdoors at a cemetery with the real people's lives being told, their stories being told next to their grave. And it's an experience. It's just an unforgettable experience. And it's a really neat experience with food and drinks, which is so local style, right? You got the food and
Right.
drinks, and then you got these live stories, and it's spread across this, it's almost like a tour of 5 different tents that you go to and visit across the site. It's just a neat experience. Anybody have feedback, audience feedback, or remarkable memories or stories to share from the past performances or audience experiences?
I'll field the first one, give Karen a chance to think of a couple. But one of the neatest things for me as the researcher is to see descendants of these people come to the shows, and to see the stories of their ancestors being acted out live. And I think that's, and luckily our research and script writing process has been so good over the years that we've had a very positive reaction from the descendants of these people. And sort of a funny takeoff on that. One year when we did it at the Mission Cemetery, we had Marion Lyman Mercer, who was on the show last week for Open Your Hearts Wide,
Yes.
portraying Anna Rice Cook, the founder of the Honolulu Museum of Art. Well, Sam Cook, Mary Cook's husband, who is passed now, passed a few years ago. Now, if you look at pictures of Mrs. Cook historically, she is not a small woman. Marion Lyman Mercer, on the other hand, is a very thin lady. And so she gets done with her spiel. Sam's in the audience, and Sam comes up to her, taps her on the shoulder. She turns around, sees Sam, goes, "You know, my grandma was fat." and she turns around without missing a beat. This is why we hire the actors that we do. She turns around and goes, "What's wrong, Sam? Don't you like my new look?"
That's great. That is so awesome.
So I mean that those are a couple, but I mean we even had one family member of someone else go, "Man, how did our family get all that land?" addressing the actor as if he was the person.
I remember our director, Will Howell, telling that story when he played John Papa Ii.
Right.
That the family
I
members,
believe his response was, "You better talk to your family lawyer."
yeah, the family members believed he was that ancestor, and then they went to talk to him and said, "How did we get the money and how did we get the land?" And he was like, "Yeah, go talk to your
talk
lawyer."
To your lawyer, Auntie. Yeah. But yeah, I mean those are sort of the more couple of funny ones, but there's been so many touching experiences over the years. We did one where it was the Tales from the Sea one, the Live Grimes. One of his officers on his merchant ship was John Dominus. And so we had a family member come who's researching his sea career, his as a sailor, and said, "Hey, that one that you mentioned in the script, I had never heard of that voyage before." And I ended up sharing my research files with her to help round out her research on her ancestor.
Wow. That's really cool. That's great. Karen, do you have any memorable experiences or stories? I know the audiences are always so touched, and they always are so grateful, and they have a lot of questions in the question and answer when we go back to the chapel. And but they're always so moved by the stories, and they're always so engaged. So it's really neat to have the audience's spirit and energy, and really enjoying listening to these stories. But Karen, any memorable things happen with you?
Absolutely. Well, there's a couple, but you're so right. The audience will think that you're their character, you are the person. And so they'll start asking you questions like you would know. And I just go, Mike.
Mike, yeah. The researcher. Yeah.
Yeah, right. One of Well, there's a couple. I remember doing First Woman Doctor, and there were many women in the audience who were at the medical school and completely related to her story, because she was thrown out of medical school because the men who were students couldn't handle that there was a woman there, right? But she kept pushing and she kept going back, and she finally, was able to become a doctor. And these women were telling me it's not changed that much. There's a lot of prejudice against women doctors still out there, but they loved knowing that story. They really, really loved knowing that story. And there's a number of Lowry descendants that have seen her and just really, really appreciated hearing grandma's story. It's awesome. How about you, Karen? I'm curious.
Well, I was telling you guys, it's neat.
remember?
It's neat how the audience connects to us, because when I play Lucy Peabody for At Your Service, that themed, she's the lady in waiting for Queen Emma, and she addresses Queen Lili'u in that story. So I get to play kind of all three roles. I get to play Lili'u and Emma, Queen Emma, and Lucy Peabody. And but mainly telling the story from Lucy Peabody's point of view. And it started to rain, and the audience felt so compassion for her and for me that they kept offering me their umbrellas, and because they saw that I was outside of the tent telling the story, and the rain started, but they called me by my character name. So they said, Lucy, Lucy, and they were like holding out their umbrella to me and trying to get me to take their umbrella. And so I had to go like this, like hold on. And then I just turned around and took the umbrella that I had, which Mike provides for us in case it rains. There's always an umbrella for us. I just didn't turn around to grab it because I was so engaged and kept telling the story, and the rain wasn't that heavy yet. But they were so concerned for me, but they addressed me as Lucy. So they were like, Lucy, Lucy, and gave me wanted to give me their umbrellas. And that was so neat because, that doesn't normally happen in a theater show, right? So that kind of connection in this outdoor show, in live theater, it's always personal, but for some reason, this is a whole nother level of personal. When it's real people, real history, real families, and the people are right in front of you, and you're right there, and it's small groups. It's a very intimate, personal telling of this piece of history. And so the audience is definitely part of it, along with the spirit and the person who's the story's being told, along with the actor. So it's like a very collaborative theater piece. We're all part of it. It is living history, and we're all part of it. And so it's really, really neat. So Stephanie, before we get into how people can get tickets and all of that, I want to wrap up with that. But Stephanie, this is going to be your first one. Are you anxious? Are you nervous? Or what are you looking forward to?
I'm actually looking forward to having the audience there because of that connection with the audience and the feedback they give you. Because when we filmed it, that was the scary part, because it's with a film, and I know they can cut it and edit it and all that stuff, but there's no interaction, right, with the camera. So I'm eager to have an audience.
Yes. And we're all looking forward to that, especially after a year of COVID and not having in-person live theater so much. There's been a little bit of it, but not as much. And so getting back to that is going to be so nice. Okay, Mike, how do people check this out? Where do they go for tickets? What's the dates, the cost, and what's the link to get here?
All right. So the best thing to do is to go to www.missionhouses.org. That's the Hawaiian Mission Houses website. We have a tab up top in the navigation bar for Cemetery Pupu Theater. And from there, you can choose either the live version or the virtual version, the filmed version. And tickets for the live version are $55 a person. But that includes your 2 entree bento, your drinks and the performances and the Q&A and the whole experience. For the virtual version, that one, you can still go to missionhouses.org and you choose the virtual version. It's $25 for an individual and $40 for a multiple person household or multiple person viewing. And so you can click on that. And I believe for the entire run, you'll have access to all 5 portrayals, and you can watch it at your leisure. You can watch it on repeat if you want. And you can watch it over and over again if you so choose. And also you can continue. You can actually choose also to donate some extra money to help out our education programs at Mission Houses.
So people can watch from anywhere for the virtual, right?
Exactly.
Anywhere in the world.
Yeah, exactly. Last year, the Women's Suffrage Show, we had a friend of mine who works at a museum in Washington, D.C. She watched it from Washington, D.C. And then we were able to supply one of the videos for her program at her museum, her virtual program. So it's really neat that we're able to expand our reach that way with a virtual film version.
That's so cool.
But
So
if you're coming in person, I highly recommend get your tickets very soon, as soon as possible. We've actually already sold out 3 nights, and 2 other nights are nearly at capacity.
Wow.
But I will tell you, there's some tickets, a few more tickets available on June 25th, which is the last Friday of the live run. So if you want to see it live, almost guaranteed to get a ticket on the 25th right now. That might not be true in a day or 2 though. So get your tickets soon. For the
because
in-person.
These shows sell out. They're very popular. And so they
we used to sell out at 100 people. We used to sell out at 100 people a night. And because of COVID, we cut that down to 50% capacity for the live run. But we used to put 20 people under a tent every single night for 6 nights and sell out every night. So we're looking forward to a sold out run this year as well, even with the capacity cap at 50 people at 50%. But we're excited to also be offering the virtual version that people can watch from wherever or watch whenever they want and wherever they are.
That's awesome. And let me just clarify, if you're just tuning in, the 50 people are split up into 5 groups of 10. So it's not like you're in a crowd of 50. You're in a smaller group when the show starts, and you're in a group of 10 that's spread out under a tent. You do come back into the chapel for a Q&A, but everybody wears their mask, and you can physical distance in there as well. So it is limited number. So the link and the virtual they can buy tickets now, anytime, 24/7, missionhouses.org. And then the link is available from June 11th to June 26th for those who purchase the virtual performance for $25, and they can watch as much as they want that whole time for 3 weeks. And then in person, it's June 11th and 12th, 18, 19, 25, 26, Friday, Saturday for the next 3 weekends. But you said all the Saturdays are sold out already.
All Saturdays are completely sold out. And
the first 2 Fridays, there's only limited tickets left. So if you want to go on
limited
Friday,
tickets left on this coming Friday, we only have 2 tickets left. So if you want a very interesting date night, this would be buy your ticket right now. And it looks like we have
how many tickets for June 18th, the Friday, June 18th?
We only have 9 tickets available for June 18th.
Wow.
So right now on the 25th is your best bet right now for getting tickets. But if you got a group of, if you got a small group or you want to take somebody on a very interesting dinner date, this is your bet.
Okay, so if you can't get in on the other weekends, June 25th might be the one to get a ticket for right now. We got a lot of tickets for that date, but they're all selling really fast. So get on missionhouses.org, missionhouses.org. Tell your friends, tell your family, And this might be a safe little outing to come together and to experience the living history of Hawaii. And it's a really neat experience, and we'll make it as safe as possible for you. Or jump on the virtual link and experience it that way. So you can experience it that way for $25. It's still going to be a treat. You still get the recipes, you still get the PDF form of the program, which is all interesting in itself. Many people comment on the program. They love reading all the stuff that's in there about the people and about the history. That's intriguing to people too. So you get all of that on the virtual as well, just for $25, and you have 3 weeks to access all the 5 stories that are shared. So many opportunities for everyone to join us this summer. Keep us in your prayers and thoughts that all go well, and less rain, no rain, and and that all goes well. But I'm really excited about it, and I'm so excited to do this 10th anniversary show. What is the name of this show? A Decade of Living History, is that what it's called?
Yep. Cemetery, Oahu Cemetery Pupu Theater, A Decade of Living History.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Mike. Thank you guys so much. And I'll see you on June 11th, 5 o'clock.
Yep.
5 o'clock, the audience comes to get their dinner and drinks, and 6 o'clock, the show starts. What time does it end? How long is the show? We usually end by 8:30-ish, right?
Usually you're back at the chapel around 8:15. And the Q&A, we usually try to keep to about a half an hour.
Okay, so about 8:45.
About 8:45, 9 o'clock is usually when we're done, if you choose to stay for the talkback session afterwards, the Q&A.
Got it. So they can plan their night. So you show up at 5, but remember, you got to buy your tickets now because it's going to be sold out. You can't just show up at 5 at Oahu Cemetery in Nu'uanu, off of Nu'uanu Avenue. 5 o'clock Friday, Saturday, and show starts at 6 and goes till 8:45, 9. All right.
Yep.
What a deal. What a deal. Thank you guys so much. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for having us, Karen.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you to everybody who's watching. I actually hope I see you at the cemetery. Is that weird to say? Weird to say. I hope I see you at the cemetery. That's very strange to say.
In this life, you'll see that.
In this life, yes. In this life. In this life. Thank you. In this life. See you at the live performance of Cemetery Pupu Theater. Mahalo, you guys. Thank you so much. Or virtually, check us out online and then DM us how you liked it. So mahalo, mahalo, mahalo.
Yay.